Little rapid fire intro here for you. A&M, you're so irrelevant that the Big 12 doesn't care that you left and the SEC doesn't consult you on adding your teams. Texas, how many players, how many coaches, how much money will it take for you to realize you're never going to win anything? Oklahoma, you keep beating Texas, but you keep playing second fiddle to every decision they make. Missouri, yeah. Colorado, when's the last time you heard Colorado's name spoken? They suck in football and basketball. They're irrelevant in the Pac-12, and that's an irrelevant conference. Nebraska, wow, fun going 2-10 every year in the Big Ten, isn't it? Really, really glad you decided after you made the Big 12 championship game to leave. That was really smart. The rest of the Big 12, you suck. The Big 12, wow, West Virginia was a great addition, way to really lock down keeping Texas and Oklahoma for the foreseeable future. ACC, outside of Clemson, and then in basketball, outside of Duke, who just lost Coach K. Wow, really, really good conference there. SEC, I hate you. Alabama, I hate you more. Stop winning. All right, it's time to talk about it. You got a guy that really has no subs yet, no credibility on the stage. All I do is watch a lot of college sports, mainly basketball. I'm going to make an impact. I'm going to make my voice heard here. Let's go ahead and break down the news of the day. So starting off, we've got Oklahoma and Texas are thinking of leaving the Big 12 and going to the SEC. And I'm just going to let you sit and ponder that for a second while I sit and ponder what the heck are they thinking? Okay, well, let's break down first why they would do that. First and foremost, the Big 12 is an incompetent organization that has done a pathetic job looking into the future to see what its two biggest players, Oklahoma and Texas, would be doing and what they could do to prevent that from happening. And Texas and Oklahoma, it's bottom dollar, right? At the end of the day, they're driven by bottom dollar. The SEC is the bottom dollar. And on top of just the money, which is the only reason they would do this, it also could potentially thrust them into a bigger role in the college sports world, even though Oklahoma is traditionally a top 4 finisher, close to usually at least, and both of them regularly make the basketball tournament, March Madness. But still, could be an upwards move. At worst, it's a lateral move. Really, I don't see it being a negative move. But as far as the money goes, there's no doubt about it. It's worth it. So worth it, in fact, that they're willing to pay $76 million each to make the move. Think about that. Both Texas and Oklahoma are willing to pay $76 million each, not together, each, to make a move to the SEC. Go ahead and brighten my camera because this is just getting angry. I'm getting angry here. Let me get this a little better here. There we go. All right, Texas and Oklahoma moving the SEC, paying $76 million. It's not confirmed yet, not 100%, but basically confirmed from everything I've seen. As early as this year, making the move, $76 million paid, but they're going to make so much more money than that it'll be worth it. Okay, so what impact does that have? And why could the Big 12 not realize that doing nothing for years and just continuing to trend down in football, which is, you know, the money sport, obviously, like basketball, Big 12 trending up, football, Big 12 trending down. Why would the Big 12 not go, hey, we need to make something happen in order to compete with the SEC? Because the Big 12 is stupid, first of all. So I don't really blame Texas and Oklahoma for making this move. As far as business goes, it's the smart move. The problem is they're not thinking about the wider implications that this brings, and really that this increasing trend is bringing to college sports. And I'm going to mainly focus on basketball, being mainly a basketball fan, but this impacts everything at every level as far as college sports goes. So first, let's talk about the implications in football of this. Oklahoma and Texas being two of the biggest powers. Texas is not exactly a mainstay in, I guess, not the BCS anymore. The playoffs, they haven't even been to the playoffs yet. But since their championship appearance in 2009, 2010, really, I think they've made one BCS bowl in that time. And that was that 2 years ago against Georgia? 1 year ago? I don't remember. Basically, they've been kind of a nobody as far as the power rankings go. but they are still a big player as far as the money goes in college sports. And then OU obviously is a big player as far as money goes, but also has been a perennial powerhouse. If you just ignore the fact that Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State exist and Clemson, Oklahoma is the next biggest threat. So it's definitely a good move for the SEC. It suddenly makes the contention of other conferences to the SEC absolutely null. The SEC pretty much had a vice-like grip on the rest of the NCAA before this as it was, and now they'll have even more of a vice-like grip. Like, there is no contention. The ACC, who has been doing a good job, and the Big Ten, who has been doing a good job, really will hold no candle. Ohio State and Clemson can't carry those conferences anymore to the level that the SEC will be at. Especially with the changing to, I believe it's the 12-team playoff format, which is pretty much hated by most everybody, as this move is. The 12-team playoff format, I'm pretty sure there are no automatic qualifiers, so it's pretty much all at larges. So the SEC, who has consistently had the most at-large bids, like, think how many times have you seen in the national championship game 2 of the same conference? It happened once in the BCS era, and it's also happened once in the playoff era. So, or at least once, I mean, for the SEC. In the past, 10 years, it's happened twice, and it's both the SEC. Now you're just going to see more of that. You're going to see possibly, you could have 8 or 9 teams out of the SEC make the 12-team playoff format, and then who's going to win the championship? Who do you want to place your bets on? ACC? SEC? Come on. So essentially, you'll have a monopoly on the playoffs by the SEC. Which, sidebar here, bring back the BCS. Let the computers decide. I'm sorry. I'm tired of seeing the same 4 freaking teams in the championship game. And yes, you were seeing SEC in the championship game every year anyway. But at least it was the 2 best teams. The other BCS bowl games had an impact. That's probably an unpopular opinion. That's mine. Whatever. Either go 8-team playoff or BCS. Don't go this 4-team crap. Don't go this 12-team crap. Both of them are terrible. Whatever. Okay. So we have a monopoly on college football. Really, the Big 12 is going to dissolve. You're going to see Oklahoma State kind of impactful. Might go somewhere. I don't know where they would even go. Maybe the ACC. Maybe I don't know. I really don't know where the other teams would go. I mean, you got people that are like non-factors like Kansas, but then you have people like Oklahoma State and TCU and Baylor who are kind of impactful. It depends on the year. Regardless, really what this does is it means no longer in college football. In basketball, it's still a thing, but in college football, conferences don't mean jack crap about anything. Conferences are literally just a contract you sign. In the old days, conferences were kind of where you were located. It was a very regional thing. So you had the Southwest Conference, which had like Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, or actually I remember Oklahoma. It's way before my time. Oklahoma was part of the Big 8. I don't know. Regardless, Big 8, you had Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma State, I think. Pretty sure all those teams. Iowa State maybe. Nowadays, you have a conference like the Big 12 where they were like, crap, we got to get at least one team. And of course, the one team they chose was West Virginia, which I think has done little to nothing for the Big 12. But you have West Virginia, who's out 15 hours away on the coast, if not more than 15 hours, playing against a team like Texas. So we're talking regionally, that's just stupid. Even the SEC has had A&M and Missouri for years, and neither of those teams make any sense in the SEC. At least they're both Southern. I don't know. Even Missouri kind of doesn't fit the bill. Like the Colorado move to the Pac-12, that made a little more sense at least. Colorado, kind of in the mountain region, kind of makes sense. Nebraska to the Big Ten, I at least somewhat see. Very much Midwest to North Central state, so it kind of made sense. In basketball, you'll have regions like, forget the Sun Belt, because the Sun Belt's all kinds of messed up. But you have, say, the Western Coast Conference. And not only do these conferences care about the region that they're in, so you have like all California teams, you have a team in Spokane, and you have even BYU. but for the most part, they also care about an identity. So the West Coast Conference are small Jesuit schools on the West Coast, with the exception kind of BYU. And I can't remember if there's another team in there that's an exception. And even BYU kind of fits the bill. They're a little larger, but they are at least a religious institution school. But you have like small schools like Pepperdine and Gonzaga, who is a small Jesuit school, whether you say they're impactful or not. And there's a lot of conferences like that. Not all of them, but a lot of conferences like that. Whereas in football is mainly just, and this could be due to the restrictions of how many teams are in football. This could be due to just how many conferences there are, as opposed to basketball and how many teams there are. It's a lot harder to make regions when you have a lot less teams to make a region out of. So really kind of going to destroy the conference hierarchy. Largely, you're going to see some super conferences being made. Definitely ACC and Big Ten are going to make pushes now because they can't compete. So that's just from this alone, which will impact basketball as well, but we'll get to kind of more on that later. Let's move to the next topic in this increasing trend, and that's one that I actually don't disagree with. The college athletes can now earn money from name, likeness, image, blah, 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 blah. Again, don't actually disagree with this rule on a fundamental level. It is more in line with what I feel is that, so you have the NCAA and what benefits the NCAA. That obviously is going to be the least concern to me because really what should benefit is the people, right? As you go down the pyramid, the smaller parts of the pyramid should be benefited more. They should be heard more. So like a super conference, I don't really give a rip about the SEC because the SEC is about the SEC. I care about the teams in the SEC, say, that get benefited. So that's why on the one hand, I could understand Texas and Oklahoma. And so at a fundamental level, while this does overall hurt parity and hurt small schools, I'm okay with this because I think a player should own their own rights. I think a player should be able to do whatever they want with their name because that is their name. I've always felt that. I mean, we attribute a number to everything in society. Social Security, you are given a number at birth. So I think it's fair that you can use your name. I think that is a freedom you should be able to have. I'm okay with that. But this does really hurt the parity that we've actually been seeing trending up in like college basketball, for say, not in football necessarily, but in college basketball in recent years. This is going to hurt parity. This is going to hurt the small schools. Because sure, this isn't the school actually paying their money. So you're not saying, okay, well, this school has more money, therefore they can pay more to the player. No, that's not what this is saying. This is saying a school like Alabama in football is going to be able to market your image a lot better. And that's just how it is. That's just how it is. In basketball, Duke is going to be able to market your image a lot better than New Mexico State, per se. Why would you go to New Mexico State when you can go to Duke? Or more accurately, why would you even go to, I don't know, North Carolina State as opposed to Duke? Because Duke can market you better. North Carolina can market you better. Michigan State, Michigan, name them. There's a ton of different teams. Even probably UCLA can market you. This might bring them back onto the stage as they've already made a Final Four. So again, I don't disagree with the ruling necessarily. I'm okay. I think that's the right thing. I think people should be able to own their own name. It's just unfortunate because the byproduct of this is a loss of parity and a loss of the really small school environment, which goes along with another thing. And I don't have it here on the page. Recent discussions to essentially do a similar thing to college football for college basketball, and that college basketball has talked about having Division I versus Division II almost, FBS versus FCS, really taking the cream of the crop and making them their own level that won't really interact with the other level. And I've seen a lot of support for this from major conference players, and I've seen obviously a lot of hate for this from the smaller conferences, because this is going to kill parity. Nobody's going to want to go to the smaller conferences if they don't even have a chance to play against the bigger conference teams. So just another thing that's really killing the sport. killing sports in general. I mean, we're seeing everybody can agree that this is a new era of college sports. What everybody might not agree on is that this is going to hurt the sport. And of course, you can't know this is going to hurt the sport overall. Sport could be just as entertaining 10 years from now as it is from right now. But I'm going to make the claim that yes, this is hurting the sport. Keep in mind, I have a bias. My favorite team is St. Mary's out of the West Coast Conference. So of course, I'm a little biased, but I still have a voice. The next one, the transfer portal. So basically, we've become a free-for-all on transfers. It's like in the NBA. You can request a trade, sit out for a season, and get traded. And I don't have a problem in the NBA with that happening because we're talking about contracts, paying money. I do have a problem, heck, I have a problem if that's your contract. But, if you're doing a one-year deal and you're going to different teams in the NBA, I don't care. That's your contract. You're playing out your contract, whatever. In basketball, in college basketball, I have a problem with this because obviously you've made a commitment. When you're given a scholarship, you make a commitment. You're going to a team. What we saw last year were a lot of players, especially in football, who would play 2 games and then sit out the rest of the season, still get their scholarship. Now, keep in mind, a scholarship is worth at least $20,000 probably per year. I mean, okay, so I went to college and I was paying about $7,000 per semester without a scholarship. So let's say $14,000. That was at a pretty cheap school. North Texas, they don't make you pay a ton for tuition compared to other schools. So a scholarship for me each year was about $14,000. Now, at a lot of these bigger schools, you're talking probably closer to $20,000 in scholarship, especially with the other things they get. So over time, 4 years, let's just say that's a $75,000 payment over 4 years. And not just $75,000 payment, but you're getting free room, free board, free food, free travel, in a lot of cases getting free benefits that maybe you're not supposed to get, or even benefits that you can get. These are a lot of things you're getting. And so now you can get those things without even playing out a season and transfer to another school with no penalty. It used to be that when you transferred, you had to do your penance and sit out a year. And I'm okay with that. As long as you've done the time, I'm fine with you playing the game that way. If you want to transfer, if something doesn't work out for you, or heck, if you were, if you were a target of racism or you were a target of abuse, you could transfer and get eligible to play immediately due to the hardships you suffered. Granted, that's become a lot more subjective and a lot more, everybody gets to basically call that, and that's kind of why they're going to this. But I'm okay with that if that's the reason you left, because really kind of they didn't hold up their end of the contract. But when you are yanking around the colleges chains, I don't feel bad for the colleges. I feel bad for the fans who are getting cheated out of essentially the commitment you've made to them. Because when you're a college athlete, you're making a commitment more than just the college. You're making a commitment to the fans as well. And when you're transferring year after year after year and not having a penalty for it, I have a problem with that. The next one I'm going to go to is how this affects the really arena as a whole of college sports, and especially these smaller schools. So we're going to start with Hartford. Interesting news. So Hartford just made the NCAA March Madness tournament, won their conference tournament, made the NCAA tournament. Immediately after, they decided, we're not making any money. We're dropping to Division III, dropping scholarships, dropping, a ton of money because we're just not making money. They said it would save them, I think, $7 to $9 million. I'm not going to read this article. And you're going to see a lot of this. You're going to see a lot of this, whether the NCAA decides to implement a new division themselves or not, like an FBS versus FCS in basketball. You're going to see a lot of this because nobody's going to want to go to these schools. And eventually, when it gets passed, because it is going to get passed, the colleges can now start just straight up paying players. Even if you're saying every college can only play a player this much money, even if you're not saying it's based on college can pay whatever they can. Because if you're saying the college can pay whatever they can, there's no CBA, then obviously that's going to reduce parity because St. Mary's won't be able to pay half the amount that an Alabama would be able to pay. But if you're just even saying that colleges have to pay a base amount per player and you can't go over that, you can't go under that, you're going to see colleges that already don't make money off of Division I sports because they are expensive. You're going to see them start dropping sports like flies. It's going to drop like flies because if you're adding on cost to that, suddenly those programs won't be able to contend, while programs that do make money off sports like Texas, like Oklahoma, like Alabama, they're going to be able to play their players and not have a problem with it. Especially if it's a small base amount, then it won't even be a problem to them. It'll just be reducing the competition from smaller schools. So we've already seen this happen with Hartford. We've seen this happen with UConn in football. They've considered dropping football entirely because they don't make money off of it. They only make money off basketball. They had to move back to their conference out of the American, which I'm okay with. I think that was the right move. I think they should have never left the Big East. But as far as, for why they did it, because they weren't making money in football. And you're going to see a lot of that in both football, basketball, every sport. Sports are just going to start dropping like flies from these smaller schools. And again, if you don't have a sport at that school, why would you even consider that school? Obviously, you wouldn't. So no longer can you even consider going to these smaller schools, let alone consider them for a brief second before going, they can't provide what they need. So what that boils down to is really we're just watering down college sports. We're kind of killing the ecosystem. The rainforest is dying, to quote IT Crowd. We have officially really begun the process of killing off parity in college football and college basketball and other sports as well in collegiate sports. I mean, you're going to start seeing parity die off in baseball, volleyball, a lot of different sports are going to start dropping. And not only have we killed the parity, we've killed the option to fight the parity. So that's what's happened. The NCAA is incompetent. I mean, it's as simple as it is. The Big 12 is incompetent, simple as it is. And yeah, I mean, the sport's dying. Hopefully I'm wrong. I really hope I can look back on this and go, this was wrong. Sport is fine. I was overreacting. But I'm going to go ahead and make the claim the sport is dying. Not just the sport, but the atmosphere. Guess I'll go watch the NBA, which is terrible because the NBA is the worst. I hate the NBA. I guess I somewhat like the NFL. I'll watch that. Go Cowboys. Whatever. Thanks for watching. Hope you have different opinions, or if you're with me, you commiserate. So, peace, y'all.